Hello folks, and in our never-ending quest to highlight the plight of micro and small business owners around the UK who own co-working spaces, and also all the people that operate in those co-working spaces, frequently said that small business is the backbone of Great Britain. And this is a really good example. It's our friend Ewan, who runs Contingent Works in Bromley. Listen out for why it's called Contingent Works, because that is more interesting than anything else in this podcast. But at this moment in time in the UK, there's a whole business rates kerfuffle going on, which I'll link to in the show notes because it's just too much to explain here. But people who run co-working and flexible workspaces, particularly in local areas, are going to be compromised, putting it politely. So after this episode, go to the link in the show notes, look for all the software companies that are sharing news about this in the UK, and the main call to action is email your MP, and we'll get into why co-working spaces are so important to the local area, and people like Ewan and Karen and Roland, who have been on recently, and there's a whole host of people ahead of us, are just so important to the life and soul of the community. Hello folks, it is the Co-working Values podcast, and all the way from sunny Bromley. Ewan, what are you known for, and what would you like to be known for, sir?
Hi Bernie. That's a good question, thanks. I think I like to be known as a connector, as someone who connects people together. It's part of having a community and a co-work community where, you know, there's loads of us, loads of different people doing different stuff. And I work with the local council quite a lot, so I get to meet lots of other groups of people. So I like to think I can introduce people to each other in a positive way.
I think you're doing that, Ewan. That's mainly why we're doing this podcast, because for those that, I mean, everyone should know where Bromley is. Can you explain a bit about where Bromley is? Because it's kind of in London, but it's not in London, is it?
That's a very common thing. It's got a bit of a split personality. So some people will say it's in Kent, and some people will say it's in London. It became a London borough in, I don't know, 68, something like that. It became the London Borough of Bromley, and but the post office couldn't be bothered to change all the codes, so it hasn't got London postcodes, and so that's partly why you go to the post office and they say it's in Kent. But that leads to quite a lot of debate, and it tends to be divided down sort of lines of age, really. So eventually we'll be in London.
Eventually everything will be in London.
Yeah.
I have the same thing when I used to live in Redbridge. Where are you from? Oh, we live in London, where, you know, it's the London Borough of Redbridge, but it's, you know, we were in Essex, so, which I was okay with, you know, like I was like an Essex boy and from London at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. And when you're traveling, like if you're in America or something, you just say, I'm in London. There's no point saying you're in Bromley because no one knows where that is. And when you're in London, you're definitely from Bromley.
Yeah, that's you're othered, aren't you? Because I would say to people, oh, do you know where the Olympic Park is? And they go, oh yeah. And, you know, and some people I know in Ilford would say they live in East London. Like Gary Economics says, I don't think he's trying to be cool about it. He goes, I'm from East London in Essex. You know, like he actually grew up about 10 minutes from where I used to live, and he's probably been in the park at the same time as me. But why talking of famous people who are from Bromley, like that was a bad segment, but like why did you name Contingent Works? Because that's like one of the most fascinating things for me, and I'm always ranting about it, actually.
Well, we named it after the Bromley contingent. So the group of sort of uber Sex Pistols fans back in 1976, they'd get dressed up to shock everyone, walk around the high street with Mohicans and all that kind of stuff. And they'd go up to London, and they knew the Sex Pistols. It was a very small group of people, you know, working in Sedition, places like that in King's Road, and go to the Blitz Club a bit later. It's kind of after punk, I guess. And they all went on to have their own band. Susie and the Banshees, Susie Sue, and Billy Idol, Generation X, probably the most famous. Steve Strange was another one. And the other half, or a lot of them didn't even come from Bromley, but they got kind of like rolled into one group. There's one guy, Simon Barker, who he's part of the contingent, and there's a very famous photo that we had blown up. It's them in I think it's in a squat somewhere in Soho, and we had it blown up and put up in our toilet wall because it was cheaper than tiling, and we thought, hey, let's do that. Let's put it up there, and we kind of know him through friends, know Simon Barker a little bit, and sent him a picture, and he was like, brilliant, I've made it from the gutter to the toilet.
Halfway between the gutter and the stars. I know that photo. Like I really, really enjoyed that. I would do the same thing. I'm trying to find the thing here, because I always think about, because you and I talk a lot about the Bromley Contingent and Bowie and the Blitz Club and all that kind of thing, and there's something about how you bring people together, because it might. I think that's like more than a cute story of like, oh, like we're bringing people together in Bromley. Like I walk around with that same kind of energy of like, I hope this turns into something like, and the whole Blitz Club story, which I'm going to put a link in the show notes to, is basically where a lot of Bowie fans would get together and the Bromley Contingent and Boy George. I actually found out Paul Oakenfold used to go there, like in the very, very early days. I don't know, he must have been about 12, but there's that bundle of, or fusion of energy that got together and then became Spandau Ballet and Boy George and, and all that kind of thing. So that's kind of like the hope I have for Contingent Works in Bromley.
Well, it's all underpinned by David Bowie, right? It all comes back to David Bowie. So the reason I met Stephen, my partner and friend in this, is because we met at, our children were going to the same primary school in Bromley, and we met at the school gate and then realised that that's where David Bowie went to primary school. We were like, really? That can't be real. And so we sat in all the chairs hoping it might be in the same chair. But it was like, this is crazy. So the Blitz Club started with all the sort of later punks kind of going into the Blitz Club, starting something else. And it was all in honour, really, of David Bowie and Brian Ferry were there, the two idols. And then, of course, famously, David Bowie finally went there and ended up using some of the Blitz Club members in some of his videos. So there's this kind of
in Ashes to Ashes.
Yeah, in Ashes to Ashes. That's right, the most expensive video in its day, And there's four of them in that. You just go, this is fantastic. How would you have felt? You're there, you're at the Blitz Club in the beginning because of David Bowie, and then you're in his video. That must have been brilliant.
I used to work in a hotel, and Roger Moore would come in for lunch. And I've never quite got over that. So if Bowie walked into somewhere like, Bernie, do you want to be on our video? I would like spontaneously combust. But there's that. Can you explain? Like, I'm trying to avoid going down a Blitz Club Bowie note, but there's that kind of feeling of getting people together. And there was and Robert Elms does this little riff about how there's nothing. It doesn't exactly say that. I don't want to misquote you, but like London's so homogenized, and the Blitz Club wouldn't happen nowadays. And when I was working in bars and clubs in the 90s, there was always like some door in Soho that sold Hofmeister till 6 o'clock in the morning, and there was a DJ playing there, and that's where you would go drinking after work. But like very rarely are there places where things can pop up. Like the Sex Pistols started in this club, and people would play in community centres, and DJs would hold raves in party. Like the Ministry of Sound is this amazing, slick nightclub and co-working space, but it used to be in a field, and there's nowhere. He argues there's nowhere for that to happen nowadays, and I kind of think that one possible place for that to happen is places like Contingent Works, where people bump into each other and the magic happens. There's a cooler way to finish that line, but
Yeah, I think it's making those opportunities, isn't it? Those people, it was all very DIY, and you made your opportunities, and I think that still carries on. I think that carries on in, council estates around here where people are still getting together and making music, to places still in Soho. I got a recommendation at the weekend to listen to Soho Radio. I don't know if you've ever heard of that. And
No.
I was like, oh, I wonder what this is. And it's a little shop in Soho where they've got a radio station, and they push out on DAB so you can hear it anywhere. And it's really good. There's no adverts, there's no news, which is kind of refreshing. And they play some really brilliant music. And I was like, this is happening. Someone must be has thought this is a great idea. I'm just going to do it, and I'm going to do it in Soho. So I'm not sure I agree totally with Rob, but things do change, obviously, and maybe people take less risks. I don't know. I don't know if that's true.
I'm misquoting him a little bit there. Like I agree with, like, I'm sort of, there's a bit of me going, it's all lost now, because there's so many, like, I used to work in a bar by London Astoria, and I've been to see loads of bands at London Astoria, and we used to go to GAY there, and it was nuts. And now it's a shiny part of Tottenham Court Road Station, and London is changing, and I think it's I think, go on.
I don't know, cities always change, and that I was like you. I was really sad when the Astoria got pulled down to make a train station, but next to it, part of the deal they had to do with the council was to open another venue. So they opened Outnet, which, while it's not to everyone's taste, is this mad, fantastic sound system. So go and see Floating Points there, and blows your mind, So I think it's a different thing, a different time, a different type of music. But I think there's always something happening in a city. It will always evolve and move around a bit.
Yeah, I like, when I'm standing at that point, I remember my dad would say something like, "Oh, it's all changing," and I'd be like, and like 19-year-old me, "Oh, but like, Dad, look, it does this," and there's, maybe I'm just like old and miserable, but I am sort of at that tension where, because in the 60s, when all the stuff we love was happening, people before that would be like, oh, all those kids in their weirdo clothes and everything. There's I think it's trying to appreciate what is happening. There is a big bit of me that it's all become like, they just brought it all up, it's all like consumerism, and I think that is happening, but in there's something going on that's really important, like grime music. I mean, I don't like, I really appreciate it. I couldn't listen to it like I listen to other things, but the fact that it's happening and how it happens gives me hope that there's still creativity and something happening in London. And I remember I can't remember his name. There's an author that was talking to the Train Spotting guy. Who wrote Train Spotting? Ivan Welsh. And they're talking about grime music, and this author says, who is in a grime band, says, like, the point of grime is that you're not going to make it. So, like, because you're not trying to make it, that's why it's good, because you're not trying to appeal to this mass market. And that's like that Soho Radio thing you were saying. It's probably really good because it's not trying to pander and become capital FM,
Yeah.
that kind of energy. Gone off a completely different tangent here. Let's come back to Bromley, even. So there's when I said to you, like, you go, what do you want to talk about, Bernie? It was like all these things you're involved in Bromley, and how you position Contingent Works in that, because there's the hub, which is across the road from you. There's that. Is it Opportunity Bromley?
Yeah.
Like this, there's all these energy points around suburbs like yours, and how do you see them all coming together, and what role do you play as Ewan in that, and what role does Contingent Works and a co-working space like yours play in that?
Well, it's a good question. It was actually from one of the co-working assemblies I went to, in Brixton, and who runs that? Who runs the
Gerald.
Gerald.
Yeah.
Sorry, I forgot his name there. But he said that he was banging his head against the wall, hated the council. They didn't listen. It was horrible. And COVID happened. And then they finally listened and they supported him. And he realised it wasn't because they weren't listening. It was because they weren't educated. And you have to educate your council. They don't understand. They don't know what a co-worker is. I didn't know what a co-worker was. So you have to tell them what it is and tell them show them what the benefit is. And you won't get them all on side, but they kind of genuinely, when they get it, they go, oh, okay. Oh, yeah. Yeah, we really need that in a town centre. That's really useful. That really helps loads of businesses. So once that sort of penny drops, they're super helpful. I mean, they're not giving you piles of money, don't get me wrong, but they will help. So they had this, the inward investment part of Bromley Council, which is part of the regeneration team, saw the potential in coming together in the co-work and bringing other businesses into that arena. So they started Opportunity Bromley. They said, do you know any creative people? And I was like, yeah, I can help. So in super quick time, we did a big video, big presentation, a brand. We launched the whole thing, and the whole brief was to get a councillor on board, which we did, and along with that team at the council. And so we now have regular networking events. It's meant we've launched an accelerator hub through that with Goldsmith University, which is held at Contingent Works now. So they have a breakfast once a month where they all come together and have like a kind of group mentoring. And then they have an evening, which is like a really tight cohort of 10 companies that are all scaling, and they all get a bit of help in that. So that's exactly what we wanted to do. So that felt fantastic. That it was kind of, it took a long time, but we got that, that these things were happening.
When you I could feel, as you were saying, that was a long time. And when I've been around things like that, it's been like, oh guys, it's so obvious. And then it takes, how long did that take? Because it is a ridiculous amount of time, but it's great to get there. But
that took 4 years. Yeah.
That's a long time. Yeah.
That took, and more importantly, it actually took a change of leadership in the council. Not the top leaders, but in that department, it took a change of personnel in that department for someone new to come in and go, you've got a co-working space in the high street. That's really handy. The others hadn't quite grasped what the how that could work for them. So yeah, you need a backer. You need an advocate in the council to help you. And as long as you can get in there and educate them, it should be reciprocal, and it has proved so far.
So I feel like this is so obvious, but it's not. And what did you find yourself having to say to inside the council as you went on that journey to explain what the value of contingent or a contingent works and a co-working space is? Because it's a bit like, you and me will rant on about the Blitz Club and why doesn't everyone get it? But you have to really be in it to understand it. So what did you constantly have to say to the local authority to have them see what we see?
I think the key is that we're co-works are a physical thing. It's a bricks and mortar business. So you have to drag them kicking and screaming into your space. And they work in an extremely dull corporate environment. It's a council office. They're never glamorous. And they walk into somewhere like Contingent Works, go, oh, right, wow, these people working here. This is amazing. This is like a hotel lobby, or, this doesn't feel like an office. And they don't always, the things they don't always get it. We had the Mayor of London's office came here, some people from the GLA, and they walked in on a Friday and went, oh, this is where all the people from London work, because we were really busy and there's no one working round their area of London. So that was quite interesting. And they were like, oh, you've got a sound room and a podcast room. And it's like, oh, okay, we can see why people want to work here, So it's kind of just dragging people here and getting them into the space and seeing, introducing them to people. We've got the local MP coming in. I think it's February now. It's been pushed back a little bit. So that's another sort of target, is try and get people of influence to come here and work out what it is and see what it is with their own eyes. And hopefully then they will sell it back to their groups and their people that they know.
I think that's like a very important thing, because we're going to link to it in the show notes, the whole business rates conversation. And one of the things like Jane and Flexa, and we're supporting her in that, is advocating for, is like, get your MP to come and see your space. And if you really think about it, like as an MP on your journey around your, you wouldn't go, oh my God, I've got to go and see the co-working space. You probably go, I need to go and see the hospital. I need to go and see the schools, the places of worship, and, the Rotary Club. But it's not on the traditional to-do list. And exactly what you just said there, I'm going to try not to repeat it, is I think when an MP comes in there and one of their things is about local economic development, and they see it, they'll go, oh, I get it now. And then there's a lot of stuff they won't understand. And as they get to explain it, they will join the dots in their head with other projects they're doing.
Yeah, you're right. And they, it was actually, that support for the business rates and trying to get our voices heard, it was one of the triggers. But it's a really, really great member story. And we've talked a lot about the great stories we had there around our members. And it was one of our members who actually wrote to the MP and said, I don't know why you're not here. I don't know why you support this place. It's absolutely brilliant. I couldn't work without this place. And he did that off his own back. He didn't actually tell me he was doing it. And we got a response from from the parliamentary office. So we're going, oh, this person's written in, maybe we should come and see you. So it was just I still think that I've got to thank Jack for that, So I remember Jack, who just off his own back wondered why the MP hadn't been to see us. He couldn't work it out.
So the other thing I want to ask you about is the hub, because I actually came across the hub because we're always advocating for the showing the action as a movie, and I'm part of that whole citizen collective conversation. And I saw you were a trustee on the hub, and I was like, this is the full circle. So what is that about? And then, so I know, how did you get involved with that? Because it's like a really good connection to have. And how do you get involved in it? And what does it do for the local such a pro term, that the local ecosystem, Ewan. How do you contribute?
Well, it was a kind of there's one of those sort of Venn diagrams, where there's all these overlaps, and you start going, what is this? So it was Greener and Cleaner as a charity set up by a local lady who's completely mental, and she would love me to say that, but she just does so much work. And charities are generally led by people like that who have 200% energy. And so she set up Greener and Cleaner as a sustainability group where they would meet and talk about recycling, talk about planting, and talk about saving the planet generally. And they had this idea of having if you could have a hub in every shopping centre, you could capture people that don't listen about recycling or sustainability. They're not interested. They're busy, whatever. They thought, if we can catch them while they're shopping, this would be a brilliant place to do it. So they started up as a charity, launched in Bromley in the Glades, which is a big, reasonably successful shopping centre. And they've been going a few years now, and they asked for a trustee, but at the time they were also using Contingent Works as their office, and we were giving them a big discount and stuff because they're a charity, and they were using us because in the hub was getting so popular they couldn't do any work there. So it was, when they had to call out for trustees, it just seemed a natural thing to try out. I'd never done that, so I thought it'd be nice to be part of something. And just like a co-work, they're kind of on the high street. They're visible to the public. Anyone can come in and be part of that.
And with the, I'm going to ask a high street question here. Like we hear, I just hear all this time about high streets. It's really important. Bring back the high street, and you're one of the people I know that's like actually on a high street in a suburb, and it might sound like really glamorous when there's like a RSA presentation about bringing the high streets alive again. But like when you're in Bromley and it's raining in January and you're trying to reinvigorate the high street, like how does that feel in the day-to-day reality?
I think it's, the high street needs reinventing. Like retail is sort of on its knees, and 2019 was the worst retail year ever. And now they're trying to get back to post-COVID, and they're kind of going, well, we're nearly at 2019 levels, forgetting that it was terrible. So, retail has to change, and we all kind of know that. So you make high streets as destinations, and so you have leisure and you have healthcare and whatever, and you have co-works, because you've got the infrastructure, opposite Contingent Works. Every single bus going through Bromley stops opposite our building. The infrastructure is there. We're 5 minutes from a mainline train station, which makes us 20 minutes from Victoria Station in London. So all that connectivity is here in most high streets. That's the whole thing. It's all there. So you're not having to reinvent or point people to a business park or whatever it might be. It's all there. So I think that's partly why high street's important. And obviously the whole nighttime economy, which is another strand, also feeds into a co-work. I've got very good friends running co-works in different parts of the country, and they have like honesty bars and tuck shops and things. And I thought, oh, that'd be a good idea. Maybe I should do that. But we've got every type of coffee within 5-minute walk. You literally walk out the door, and I could name 3, 4, 5 big brands within 100 feet. So it's that's a benefit of being in the high street. The people are here, the infrastructure's here.
In COVID, I was in a place called Work Hive in Ilford, and I'd never found it before. And I'd never found it before because the guy who runs it didn't have to advertise. I was like horrified he didn't have a website, and he only just got a website at the beginning of COVID, and it was appalling. But he had a waiting list, and that's why he just. I hate people like this. I mean, I'm jealous, but I just don't need to do any marketing because I have a waiting list, and it's because it was a very well run office, nearly co-working space. But I realised that I would, if someone said, "Do you want to have a coffee in Liverpool Street?" I'd walk 4 minutes down the road, get on a train to Ilford, get off at Liverpool Street, have a coffee, and come back again, which was just way better use of time than going into London every day like I had been for the past 10 years. It's the mindset. I was going, why didn't I do this before? Partly because there wasn't somewhere to work then, but I would have saved so much money and have so much more time if I'd done it that way. There's this huge mindset shift that has to happen in people like me. And I got to know more people in my local area during COVID because I'd see them walking around than I did when I was, squashed on a tube train going into town.
Yeah.
So at this moment in time, as you think about like everything that's happened in the high street and the local area and your co-working space, like what would you hope would happen in the next? You said it took 4 years to get that whole project going, and you got the incubator and things going, which I think is a really, really good thing for co-working spaces to get into. Like what would you hope would be the next stage of it all coming together in 2026?
Yeah, that's another very good question, Bernie. Thanks. What is that? I think 2026 is going to be a good year, right? Nothing can be quite as bad as this year. It's been very tough, but I think things look to be improving in 26. And you kind of want to be successful. Obviously, you want things to turn over and be settled, and we want to carry on running our clubs, our talk clubs we do in the evening, the things that make a co-work right. But it only really works if everything around you is successful as well. So, that Bromley are just building a new library in what was a top shop on High Street. Now that's proper repurposing of a high street, and I think it's a great idea because it's right there. It's really accessible. So, and there's an old hotel that was in a Jane Austen book. It's so old, and a local guy's put £10 million in to reopen that as a kind of like the Ned or something like that. And you go, I don't know whether that'll work or not, but people are investing and people are sort of putting things into the town that makes it exciting. And you think, well, if everyone's doing that, and if we're supported and we can all survive, then there'll be a real buzz to the town. So it's kind of, you're part of something bigger, really. You can't just live in isolation. So I think that's what I would hope 2026 will be.
Thank you so much for your time and attention today, and go to those gorgeous show notes where you can find out how to connect with Ewan. There's a link to a thing called Talk Club, which is a men's club that meets people like me. I'm a man and I need to talk to other people, meeting co-working spaces. There's also a link to the Actionism movie, which is a documentary which we're encouraging people to show in their co-working space, particularly local co-working spaces. It's an epic way to get people involved in your co-working space and building your community and all that other important juicy stuff that helps make your local area somewhere worth being. Okay, so what else? There's something else I've got to say. Yes, 24th of February, we are in Blue Garage in Lewisham, and there's 150 co-working space community builders all in a room talking to each other all day. There's a little bit more than into that, but if you go to the link in the show notes or find us on social media, you can join the wait list, and tickets go on sale sometime again towards the end of January. Have a great day. Be careful out there. It is a jungle.